answer the following. Who will you be seeing in your dreams? You see, till this day, people are still thinking that Sayyidina Hamza looks like Anthony Quinn. Really, and to us, you don't know the real face. You see my point? And so how do you know? So there are three general conditions, and then I'm gonna explain these in depth. Three general kind of loose conditions that the scholars they put out. They say that a person sees the Prophet ﷺ in his dream, and the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ana Rasulullah." I have to tell you something. If a person sees the Messenger of God and the Messenger of God talks, it's a very high level dream. It's a high level of a dream. If it's him in his perfect form, and he talks to the person and addresses, because dreams are incrementally go up, seeing the Prophet ﷺ as the ulama state. It's Ana Rasulullah, or he says Ana, whatever word or title he uses for himself, then he says he has seen the Prophet ﷺ. The second almost way of ascertaining is that the person knows for certain, feels for certain that it was the Messenger of God alayhi salatu wasallam. The feeling, I definitely saw the Prophet ﷺ. The third is that in the dream somebody else says that's the Messenger of God alayhi salatu. Somebody else in the dream informs. So these are the three general kind of, that's a general framework, but I'm going to get more specific now. There are two main opinions about, can you feel that the Prophet ﷺ came in your dream and it not be the Prophet ﷺ, and you're 100% sure? Can that happen? It's a question. Is an opinion, although it's not the strongest opinion, that some, and it was according to some, the opinion of Ibn Sirin, that if a person that claimed to see the Prophet ﷺ, Ibn Sirin would say, Sifhu li, describe him. And if he wasn't content, he said, you haven't seen him. Now, I'm going to make a ta'wil of that. I'm going to say that Ibn Sirin meant that you haven't seen him as he truly was. Because Ibn Sirin's is not the main position, you see. Qadi Ayyad, Imam al-Nawawi, and all of the majority of the ulama don't say that. They say that as long as you think you've seen the Prophet ﷺ, غَلَبَ ظَنِّكَ, then you've seen the Prophet ﷺ. In reality, you have seen him. Because he said, مَنْ رَآنِي فَقَدْ رَأَى الْحَقِّ. He who has seen me has seen the truth. Meaning there's no way that, and in several other hadith, فَإِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَا يَتَمَثَّلُ بِي. Shaitan has no ability to take my form. The ulama infer, or Ibn Hajar for instance states that this means that as long as you think, that's sufficient. As long as you feel, that is sufficient. Even if you don't see but you feel, that's sufficient. Even if you hear but can't see, that's sufficient. Even if you see but can't hear, even if you can't see or hear but you can touch and feel, that's sufficient. Khalas, that's the Messenger of God alayhi salatu wasalam in your dream. And Imam al-Nawawi says exactly the same thing. He says سواء كان على صفة معروفة أو غيرها. He says the same. Qadi Ayyad, all the greatest ulama say have the same opinion. So we begin now with some stories linked to people who saw the Prophet ﷺ. But Shaykh Yusuf bin Ismail al-Nabhani, you can get this book. It's in English. It's called On the Means of Beholding the Prophet ﷺ in a Dream. It's a small booklet published by Ihsanika, and it's a book he wrote of all the methods how to see the Prophet ﷺ. And he says himself in the beginning, he said, I wanted to see the Messenger of God badly. So he said, before I went to sleep, I read Surah Al-Ikhlas 3,000 times. He said, by God, I could not even describe the magnificence of the form that I saw in my dream to you, if I even wished to tell you. And then he goes on to give different things that people have tried. And I would argue that you can read whatever you want. It may not work. It's had something else. A brother came to me, or somebody that I know quite well. and it's not in this room. So he came to me and he said, "Give me something to read to see the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam." Oh, I'm going to give you to read. I said, "I can give you something that somebody else has said. I have books on it." So he said, "Whatever." So I said, there's a real famous thing that you can read to see the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I said, "Go and read it." He came to me in the morning and he said, "I saw the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in my dream." It's just heart centered. People have hearts like that sometimes, you know. Maybe for us, maybe not. But nothing wrong with the litany. It's the person. He really wanted to see the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and that's very, very important, you see. And some of the ulama say that the greatest way to see the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is to read about him, you know his sifat. Do you know what he looks like? We're going to talk about that, inshallah. You know, last week I saw this video on the internet. If you didn't see it, then I mentioned a few of the lessons about the gatekeeper of the grave of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I don't know if you mentioned it. For one beautiful thing that he said, I used to sit. He's still alive, I think. The video is a few years old, but maybe he's alive, inshallah. He said, I used to sit 1 meter away from the grave of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He used to keep the grave, look after it. Nobody else was allowed in, you see. And he said, I used to sit 1 meter away from the grave of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the Shaykh on the Shaykh said, did you used to hear the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's voice? Great. He said, I used to sit there, and then after a while I could hear something nudging me, like out the way. And he said, I realized that angels had come into the room. Literally, I could feel them walking into the room. It's a place of celestial reality. That's a place where people don't understand, you see. We're just used to kind of these concrete brick. This is from heaven. And the entities that exist in that area, angelic forms of all the mightiest angels gather there every single day. People can literally feel it. You can feel them walking past you. It's incredibly heavenly. One Shaykh told me that there was a moment some years ago where they saw literally a light from the dome of the Prophet's masjid that was going straight into the sky. I know people who witnessed it themselves, into the sky. This is the reality of the Messenger of God, alayhi salatu wasalam. You know, and even when the people of God die, I still remember when Shaykh Abdul passed away. It rained in Medina on the same day. People of God, when they're taken, the people of the Messenger of God, we're going to find out what happens. There's a story, and these are so many different stories. Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu woke up and he was fasting. He was fasting, and he freed that day 20 slaves, freed them. And he tied his sarawil, his longi, he tied it, fashadda alayhi, and he stood up and in very simple clothes, and then he said to the people, he says, رأيت النبي عليه الصلاة البارحة وأبا بكر وعمر فقالوا لي يا عثمان أفطر عندنا غدا. This is the last moment of his life. He said, I saw the Messenger of God yesterday, and Abu Bakr and Umar, and they said to me, break fast with us tomorrow. عندنا غدا. ثم دعا بمصحف فنشره بين يديه وقتل من يومه. And that was the day that he opened the Mus'haf and they killed him that day. This is the highest level of connection to the Prophet ﷺ, highest level of contact with the Messenger of God. Literally, where the Messenger of God comes to you and says, get ready tomorrow, you break fast with us. Because he was fasting, you see. Can yuftir. Incredible, and emotional, because he was murdered, you see. The dreams that followed were incredible. I would document, I was going to talk about them, but there were too many. The amount of Sahaba, where they saw the Prophet weeping and they said, they've killed Uthman. Yeah, they've killed Uthman. But it just shows you that when any incident was to take place, like when Abdul ibn Mas'ud, somebody comes to him and says to him, I saw the Messenger of God in my dream. He said, so in my dream, and he said, well, what did he say? He said, Ya Abdullah, by Abdul ibn Mas'ud, you have, where have you gone after us? Alumma, he said, come to us now. What have you, you have left us. And he said, that's what you saw. He said, yeah. He said, then I'm going to die. It's almost as if, and this is incredible because the Messenger of God is calling them and informing them that tomorrow that final destination has been, you've reached it. And what's incredible about this is, who would have won that? Just people are scared of death. Imagine the Messenger of God comes to you and says, the Sahaba comes to you and says, after dinner, ghadan, you'll break your fast with us tomorrow. The fears just disappear, you see. Disappear completely. I think it's high time that at least we dedicated some nights just begging God to give us a vision of the Prophet. Saying that Abu Bakr would find him weeping in the nighttime, weeping profusely to see the Messenger of God, Busiri, etc. All of these people weeping, and they would fall asleep and maybe see the Messenger of God. And the meaning of the line, وَالْهُبُّ يَعْتَادُ لَذَّاتِ بِالْأَلَمِ, is that even though they saw the Messenger of God, it was short-lived when they woke up, until they, like Abdul bin Umar last lesson, actually asked God that I don't want to stay here anymore. I want to leave this world, because unless this vision becomes permanent for me, unless it's after bina, ya Uthman, ghadan, you will eat with us tomorrow, Uthman. I don't want to stay here. I want to leave this place. The question is for all of ourselves, and do we really want to? People, we always say, I want to see the Prophet, I haven't seen the Prophet. I'll mention something. First and foremost, the ulama are quite clear about it. If a person sees the Prophet, this is my opinion, maybe kind of tabsira on this. I'll give what the ulama say in my opinion. First, the ulama say whoever sees the Prophet in his dreams is somebody that will not lose iman. Iman will not exit his heart because of the impact of the vision of the Messenger of God on his heart. Whatever he becomes, iman will stay. That's one thing. I am of a different opinion. It's not different, a bit. I personally believe whoever sees the Prophet ﷺ in their dreams won't go to hell at all. And that's a belief that everybody should hold. It should be what you measure things by. You see, it should be what people measure things by. And that would want people to want it more. And this is why I don't understand why we don't. I mean, when you ask people what they want from the world, you surveyed 1 million Muslims, I don't think one of them would say, I want to see the Prophet ﷺ. And that's just a dark reality of our state. A dark reality of our state. I don't personally think there's anything in this world except to see the Messenger of God. I vividly remember a brother who was dying about 5-6 years ago. And he was really, really scared, this brother was. He was dying of cancer. And he had a reformation in his life. And a few days before he died, I heard that his state completely changed. He wasn't really worried about dying. And they asked him why. This is in Birmingham. It's not Baghdad in 6th century. And he said, I had a dream. And the Messenger of God came in my dream and said, do not worry for what will happen in the grave. He said, I will hold your hand in your grave. Now, how many people have had that vision of the Messenger of God? That vision where the Messenger of God offers to save you in whatever state you'll be. In contrast to that, the dunya is of no importance. The dunya that we've been engrossed in, the cyber world, we're engrossed in, all of us. What's left of the relationship with the Messenger of God? And life now, somebody asked me last week, he said to me, I was in London, said, Maulana, what have you been up to this week? I said, by God, I don't know what happened to last week. But all I know is I'm here now, and that's about it. And before we reach the age of 50, 60, I mean, what will be left of our relationship with the Messenger of God? I think personally, we are absolute rarity in this age now. And I'm going to probably finish with this, and this is a promise to you. The people who gather for the Messenger of God are disappearing. And this is the command of Allah Jalla wa'ala. This is the way that it had to happen. If you can find people whose lives depend on the Messenger of God, they are the last remaining people on this earth.